Hey guys, what's going on? It is Ash here, coming at you today with 3 Lava Hound decks. Now this was a much requested video. Today we're going to showcase 3 different decks, talk about strategy keys, do's and do nots, offensive goals, defensive goals, biggest mistakes, all the usual stuff. Now these 3 decks are all going to revolve around 3 cards that were recently either buffed or, in the case of the Mega Minion, introduced to the game, and that's part of the reason we're seeing all these Lava Hound decks now. They seem to be absolutely everywhere. We're going to talk about why, and hopefully at the end of this episode you'll have a nice toolkit of tips that will help you have success with these Lava Hound decks if you're itching to give one a try and you're just not having success so far. So let's kind of hop right into it here, and we're going to put on a replay by Trainer Nick. Now Trainer Nick is playing the deck with the lightning spell in it, and using the Lava Hound lightning combo is becoming really popular and super effective in the game. So let's hop right into his offensive goals with this deck. Now obviously your #1 offensive push is going to be your Lava Hound, followed by the Mega Minion, and then you wait to see what the defender does. Obviously any skilled player at this game will do the same thing no matter what deck you're using. Is in the beginning you kind of feel out your opponent a little bit. You try to get to know their counters, what their deck's trying to do, especially defensively against your deck. That way you can kind of study their patterns and try to predict what they're going to do for later on in the match. So offensively, you want to put your Hound, you want to put the Mega Minion, and then see what the opponent does. You want to ideally have your Lightning ready to go. If your opponent drops a bunch of ground troops like a Musketeer, an Ice Wizard, a Wizard, anything that can be taken out by that Lightning spell, you want to wait, and right before that Hound is about to pop, you want to use your Lightning spell. It will clear out the defending troops, and hopefully you'll take down that tower. Now defensively, you have a lot of options actually in this deck. The 2 most obvious are the Minions and the Mega Minion. The Mega Minion is a super powerful defensive card, like a flying mini P.E.K.K.A. It definitely has a heavy punch, and the Lumberjack is actually going to be a defensive option in this deck. And a lot of the times what you can do with an air deck, you can really do this with any deck, and one of the reasons that makes Lumberjack such a powerful card is because you can use it defensively. His hit rate now is absolutely out of control, so what you want to do is go ahead and use that Lumberjack defensively, and then hopefully in an ideal situation you can go ahead and parlay that into a really strong offensive push using the Miner. So the Miner is obviously a very important card in this deck. This is a 3 legendary deck, obviously, the Miner, the Lumberjack, and the Lava Hound. Now we will talk about another deck that only has the Lava Hound as a legendary option. That will be the 3rd deck that we share today, so I'll go ahead and timestamp in the information below in the description. So if you're interested in only seeing a Lava Hound only deck, go ahead and fast forward. I don't mind, guys. So let's talk briefly about the role of the Miner in this deck, or really in any air deck. You really have 3 main purposes of the Miner in this deck. Now the absolute #1 combination that you're going to be using your Miner on more often than not is going to be to aggro the tower right before the Lava Hound pops. That way the Miner is then the closest unit to the tower, and then the pups can take down that tower. So the Miner and the Lightning spell are really your 2 main combos to use offensively, along with a Mega Minion or the Minion. And besides that, I mean, the usual uses for the Miner, right? You can go ahead and use it to attack your opponent's pumps. Make sure they don't pick up a huge elixir advantage on you, because it's very critical that as a Lava Hound player, it costs 7 elixir, so it's a pretty expensive main tanky unit, but it's also your win condition more often than not, so you want to make sure that you maintain that elixir advantage as much as possible during these matches. In the 3rd usage for the Miner, as I go ahead and scroll through and find Dylan's replay, I'm going to alternate these first 2 replays here between the 2 players. This one will be a balloon deck. It's also going to have the Miner, but it also has a balloon in it, and it's going to be more of a bait deck. But before I move into the strategy involving this deck, because I have a lot to get to here for you guys, it's a whole different mentality using this deck versus the Trainer Nick deck, even though they're relatively similar when you just look at the cards. But anyway, the 3rd usage is to take down the Princess with a Miner in both of these decks, because if the Princess locks onto your Lava Hound and you have no way of distracting the Princess, obviously the Princess can take down your pups, and that's not what you want to have happen. You need to protect your pups. That's why you're distracting them with either the Miner or the Lightning spell to clear out the area. So you have to make sure the Princess is down as well. Now let's talk a little bit about Dylan's deck. So as I mentioned, this is kind of a bait deck. You don't have the Lightning spell in this deck. Instead, you have the Minion Horde and the Minions in this deck. So the idea is, especially on your first Lava Lava Hound push, what you want to do is bait out the arrows or the poison or the zap spell of your opponent using the minions with the Lava Hound, and then you send in the minion horde. Now, you don't necessarily have to send in the minion horde behind the Lava Hound because the Lava Hound's going to pop anyway, but what you can do is send the minion horde in the opposite lane, or you can use the minion horde to defend in the opposite lane. And speaking of defending, this is a very, very critical point when discussing any Lava Hound deck. You absolutely have to be prepared to take damage on your towers. This is a very expensive card, kind of like a golem deck. You're going to be able to pull off a lot of 3-crown victories with this really powerful deck, but it's very important to note that you have to be willing to take damage. One of the biggest mistakes you can make with either of these decks is over defending. A lot of these matches you're going to lose a tower, so if you're the type of player who gets easily discouraged when you lose a tower or when you go down big early on in these matches, a Lava Hound deck might not be the deck for you, at least until you get a little bit more disciplined, because you are going to take damage on your towers. Now, when you start off a match, your ideal hand with either of these decks are going to include either a Lava Hound or an Elixir Pump. If you don't have the Lava Hound or an Elixir Pump in your starting hand, that would be considered a bad starting hand, and you're going to want to defend and cycle over to the Elixir Pump or to the Lava Hound. So what you want to do is, if you have the Elixir Pump in your starting hand, obviously wait till you get to the 10 Elixir, make sure you're patient, and basically just defend while you cycle back to the Lava Hound. Now, when you drop the Lava Hound, when you're playing any kind of Lava Hound deck, it's important to be aware that your opponent is probably going to push the opposite lane. The Lava Hound is obviously so slow moving that your opponents are going to take that as an opportunity to attack the opposite lane, knowing that you only have 3 or 4 Elixir depending on how fast they are with the push. So you have to be prepared for that. That's usually where you're going to be taking some decent damage, but if they're late on their push in the opposite lane, that's when you can use the minions behind the Lava Hound to bait out their arrows or their poison, and then you can obviously defend unchecked in the opposite lane using the minion horde, kind of like what Dylan's doing right now on the screen. So we defended against the giant with the minion horde because the opponent didn't have the poison available in time, and you can see there just one hit on that miner. He's trying to cycle to the miner to get that left tower down, and that will be that. So your miner is obviously your assassin in this deck. Make sure you use it on the wizards, the ice wizard, the splash damage that can target air, and even musketeers too, anything that's targeting your Lava Hound. And you can see Dylan very successful again there. Now, I should note the balloon. We didn't even talk about the balloon and its place in that deck, and we will talk about that on the next replay. But now, for now, let's kind of transition back to Trainer Nick's deck, and then we'll kind of alternate here before we cover the mirror version, which will be the last version of this Lava Hound decks that I share with you guys today. So, in this deck, again, we're going to focus a little bit on the play-by-play here. We already discussed the strategy keys throughout the first replay, so you can see, starting out with a lightning spell, it's okay to use the lightning defensively if you're full on elixir and it's early on in the match, but ideally you're going to save your lightning spell for those big Lava Hound pushes and wait to see what your opponent does. But Nick here decides to make a smart move, take down that furnace right off the bat, because you know furnace can get in the way of, obviously, your Lava Hound deck. A furnace is a great counter to Lava Hound. I actually played a deck with the furnace and an Inferno Tower, and that actually does pretty well against these Lava Hound decks, because the Inferno Tower can pop the Lava Hound, and the furnace right behind it can go ahead and take out the pups. So here comes Nick's big Lava Hound push here, and right behind the Lava Hound comes the minions. Of course, they're going to be distracted by that Hog Rider. That's really not a big deal. Obviously, the Lava Hound takes so long to pop that the minions and the Mega Minion are going to be able to catch up to the Lava Hound actually in perfect amount of time here. So now you can see the lightning is up and available. He's going to go ahead and save it here because A, all there is one Ice Wizard on the board, so that's not much value in that. B, he can actually save it to use on the furnace and still hit the tower right now, for example. And C, there was already a poison on the map, so the poison was already killing his pups, so he wasn't going to get that much extra damage done had he used the lightning. So that's why I say it's very important, if you're going to use the lightning in one of these Lava Hound decks, make sure you use it smartly. Don't go ahead and use it every single time you do a Lava Hound push. Make sure you use it at the opportune time, and you can see right now, this is what I was talking about earlier as well, you can turn those minor defenses, or excuse me, those lumberjack defenses into these mini little minor pushes, and you can be very, very successful here. You can see he's actually going to take down the tower doing just that. I think the opponent here might have misjudged how much elixir Nick actually had left, and that's actually a theme that I see in some of these matches. Sometimes, even whether you're playing a Lava Hound or a Golem, these really expensive units, sometimes your opponent, if they're not super experienced, can have a tendency of misjudging how much elixir you actually have left, because the slow moving Lava Hound or the Golem or whatever your expensive slow moving unit is so slow that it gives you time to obviously recoup all that elixir back during its journey in the lanes. So you can see this is an example of that. Now is actually a really good time to talk about the differences playing a Lava Hound deck in the first 2 minutes and the last minute of a match. So the last minute of a match, obviously double elixir time, you have a lot more flexibility, and this is one of the reasons that something you have to get used to, maybe as a control or a cycle player transitioning into a Lava Hound deck, is that you can take that tower damage. We already mentioned that earlier in this episode, but you can take that tower damage early on, because double elixir time is really where these Lava Hound decks start to really shine and have their big advantage. If you can get a Lava Hound to the tower in a last minute of a match, you're looking pretty golden. Now, another thing we should discuss is that during the last minute of a match, you actually are afforded the luxury of placing your Lava Hound directly on the opponent's side of the map. Now, what you're watching on the screen right now is actually a perfect representation of what I'm talking about here. You have the Lava Hound, you have plenty of elixir, even without the elixir pump in this deck, obviously. You have plenty of elixir to drop your Lava Hound on the opponent's side in a similar area that you would drop a giant on the opponent's side. And then defending, you want to make sure you defend with your Mega Minions and your minions, and then you'll have a few possible results from that. You can see Nick picking up another win there. So a few possible results. Result number one is you're defending Mega Minion and Minion. As I pull up this next replay, they'll actually defend and then turn into offensive pressure for when the Hound pops in the same lane. But let's face it, sometimes your opponent is going to actually kill your Mega Minion and your minions depending on what they're hitting you with on your side, so you always want to have that miner ready to go for when the Lava Hound pops as well. So definitely a lot to think about regarding all the possibilities in the last minute of a match. So again, your ideal push at the very end would be the Lava Hound on the opponent's side, then you defend with a Mega Minion and a minion if it's in the same lane, of course, and then you parlay that into a big 4-card combination of the miner, the Lava Hound, and the defending troops. So let's go ahead and move on here to Dylan. We're going to focus a little bit more on the balloon and the balloon's role in this deck during this replay. So I already mentioned briefly before that the balloon in the Dylan deck usually isn't even going to be played until the last minute of a match. Well, maybe I shouldn't say usually isn't going to be played, but let me just say that the frequency of play will be much higher in the last minute of the match, because there's a few reasons for this. Number one, it's always cool to pull out a balloon in the last minute when your opponent does not see it coming and they're not ready to defend against it, kind of a surprise element. But more importantly, what makes this deck really cool is it's kind of like two decks within the deck. So your first 2-minute goal should, more often than not, of course you can slip the balloon in there if you see an opportune time to do so, but more often than not, during the first 2 minutes, what you're going to do is really rely on the bait aspect of this deck. This deck has a lot of offensive weapons, so you're really going to try to use the miner, the minions, and the minion horde, specifically the minions, to try to bait out those arrows. And I mean, think about it. You have the pups, you have the minion horde, you have the minions, and then of course you can send in the miner as soon as the hound pops. And even if the hound isn't in play, you can just use a normal miner combination of minions from defense into offense, or minion horde from defense into offense, using the miner laying some cover for you. So obviously you're trying to pump a lot with this deck, and then during the last minute, then you can start slipping in that balloon, change the game up on your opponent. They're going to have to plan on how to defend against the baiting and how to defend against your balloon when you start adding him to the mix. You can see right now this deck has a lot of defensive power as well. Obviously your defensive weapons are your minions, your minion horde, and your barbarians, a card that Nick does not have in his deck. So this actually might be a little bit more of an easier deck to master for the beginner player using a Lava Hound deck, although I guess both, now that I say it out loud, I guess both of them are pretty easy fundamental wise. You know, it's not like we're trying to do anything absolutely crazy here with either of the decks. You can see that Dylan does lose a tower there. Again, guys, you're gonna lose towers, be ready for it, don't panic. So going up against an Inferno tower is interesting here. You're gonna see how Dylan really has to utilize smart gameplay in the balloon usage at the proper time. Look at this balloon here. It was deployed right after the Hound popped. That way you can have all those pups distracting the Inferno Tower, and that is textbook how you deal with an Inferno Tower using this deck. You have the balloon and you have the pups. Make sure you use the pups wisely. You can use the pups for more than just tower damage. You can use them in combination with the balloon to distract the tower. Then you send in the balloon and you can see doing a lot of damage. Obviously you guys know that one hit with a balloon does a ton of damage to a tower. So again, very nice defense there, distracting those fire spirits coming down the lane with the mini P.E.K.K.A. with the miner there, and now he's engaging against a princess. Princess, not a big deal here. You have so many weapons to distract the princess and then send in the minions afterwards. You can see here the Lava Hound again being targeted by that Inferno Tower, but guess what, guys? There it is again. That's the combo we're looking for here. The balloon deployed after the Hound pops. He's being very, very aggressive here with the minions, minion horde, basically anything to take away those tower DPS away from that balloon to get another hit or two into the balloon. And again, defensively, he's going to rely heavily on the barbarians, and he's going to stop this push again. Just barely missed that princess on the bridge too, almost got a ton of value out of those arrows, but either way, the barbarians do take care of her, and he gets a little bit more damage on that tower, so I agree with that arrow placement there on Dylan's part. Now you can see he has the pump in his hand, but he's not even going to use it. It's the last minute. He's going against another deck without the pump. He wants to stay ahead in the rotation here, and by this time in the match, he already has his win condition all set up. He just has to make sure he defends. So he knows the Inferno Tower is going to come into play right now. There's the Inferno Tower, so he does something really smart. Before he deploys the balloon, he deploys the miner. That way there's more distracting units on that Inferno Tower, and that's going to be what ends up winning him this game. You can see he says good game. He knows he has it in the bag. The balloon does get to that tower, so he used the Lava Hound, he used the minions, he used the miner, and then he used the balloon. The balloon got to the tower, and it was another very, very nice win there for Dylan. I'm seeing so many of these Lava Hound decks win my tournaments or finish top 10. As a matter of fact, Dylan actually just finished third in a 1,000 person tournament I hosted last night, using this deck, I should mention. So to tear down the fourth wall, guys, as we get to these last two replays using this third and final deck here, I thought I would share with you guys what happened and why this part of the episode is kind of separated from the first part of the episode. So I had the first two decks ready to go, really excited to share those two Lava Hound decks with you guys, and then I was hit up on Twitter by King Dynamite here, who was like, Ash, I have a deck using the Mirror and the Princess being the only other legendary card, which is an easy sub for archers or for an Ice Wizard if that's what you have, depending on the legendaries you have available, but the basics are, the fundamentals are a lot different than the other two decks I shared. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to delay this episode one day and record these two replays from King Dynamite to give you guys a third option, because I know not everybody has the miner card, and I thought a lot of you guys would appreciate a deck like this as well. So huge shout out to King Dynamite. Let me go ahead and give his clan a plug. He's another good player, and you're going to see he uses the Tombstone as an integral part of this deck. The Tombstone has those steady flood of skeletons getting in the way and causing a distraction for the troops. The skeleton and the Lava Hound are definitely two cards that have a lot of synergy together, especially after the Clash team continues and continues and continues to give buffs to the Tombstone. They want to see more Tombstone play, so here in this deck, we're giving them a little bit of what they wanted. So in this replay that you're watching right now, it's important to note that King Dynamite is on the top, not on the bottom, so make sure you orient yourselves properly, and he's going against a Giant Witch Beatdown deck. So this deck is really cool, especially if you're looking for an opportunity to play out the new and improved Mirror. You guys probably already know this, but the new Mirror tournament standards levels or mirrors a card that's one level above tournament standards, so that's actually a huge benefit. So you get those level 5 epics, you get those level 2 legendary cards, you get the level 2 Lava Hound and the level 2 Princess in these tournament matches using the Mirror, and that's actually a really, really big boon to your deck. And defensively, this deck has a lot of options, especially when you add in the Mirror. So the Tombstone is nice because it can be both an offensive and a defensive weapon. Other defensive options, obviously the Mega Minion. You can play double Mega Minions back to back using the Mirror if you have to defend in a really tight situation. And of course, beyond that, you have the Princess, and you can mirror anything you want to. So a lot of defensive power in this deck. So this deck, unlike the two previous decks, when played properly, you might not be losing a tower as often as you do on the more aggressive decks. The first two decks have kind of a beatdown style where you're playing most most of your match on your opponent's side of the map, whereas this deck has more of a control feature to it, more of a control element to it, where you're picking and choosing your spots to use the Lava Hound as a proxy, but otherwise it's more of a control deck. You can see the giant absolutely melted there by those skeletons, and this is the really cool thing about this deck, right? I mean, once you pick up this early lead like King Dynamite did, you can just go ahead and sit there and Tombstone up, and then mirror the tombstones, drop a princess in the back, just snipe whatever your opponent throws at you, and of course you still have the mini P.E.K.K.A. to use defensively too for that hard-hitting option if need be. So another very nice win here by King Dynamite. Once in a while, go ahead and drop that Lava Hound in the back there. You can see the very last second there pulled off the 3 crown, and look at that huge stream of skeletons coming in that left lane. This is a really fun deck to play. I'm gonna have to try this one out myself. I watched the replays and a few others by King Dynamite, but I actually haven't had the opportunity to play this deck myself, so I'm really excited to do so. You know, it's one of those decks that you do have to learn a little bit, so don't get frustrated with any of these decks. I see some first-time Lava Hound players getting kind of frustrated early on, not picking up a lot of wins or as much as they're normally used to, so definitely this is one of those decks that I would really advise people to go ahead and join a classic challenge. The competition seems to be pretty light in the classic challenges as opposed to the grand challenges, where every match seems like it's a real 12-round fight, duking it out till the very end. So this last replay of today's video, by the way guys, hope you enjoyed this episode. It's really a pleasure to bring you different types of decks, and I have a few really interesting ones queued up on the agenda for this coming week. One of which particularly is going to be really cool. It's going to be a spotlight on a 3 Musketeer cycle deck that one of our clanmates is having a ton of success with. So I've actually been playing it a lot by myself, trying to get my finger on all the fundamentals of the deck, trying to get a good feel for it so I can share it with you guys. So that should be coming up pretty soon. But you can see here now, King Dynamite again on the top here, going against Laser, or LZR, and he's going to be playing the very classic Bowler Giant deck, Beatdown, which you see all the time now, everywhere, in tournament play and ladder play, everywhere. So this is actually a good example of how to counter one of these types of decks. So he goes opposite lane, or actually the opponent went opposite lane that King Dynamite did. So he has right now a Mega Minion and his Lava Hound on the tower, but you can see the opponent went so heavy on that opposite push that they're just going to end up trading towers. So I guess King Dynamite will take that. It's not even the last minute of the match, and he knows he's going to be able to shine there. He does have this control proxy deck, so it's going to be interesting to see how he changes his gameplay in the last minute versus the first 2 minutes of this match. So he continues to just build up these skeleton traps. That's the one thing about this deck, is if you don't know what to do, just go ahead and mirror a skeleton trap. I mean, you can never hurt. It never hurts to have a million skeletons on the board. It distracts units such as Sparky, such as a bowler. The bowler's going to stop every 4 or 5 steps and kill one of these skeletons, and that's going to cause a lot of separation from him and the giant. So the Tombstone, I think, honestly, is a bit of an underused card. And again, a really big push here coming from King Dynamite in the left lane. Meanwhile, there's so much separation between the giant and the bowler in the right lane, so the enemy's push kind of just fizzles out there. And keep your eye on the left lane right now. The opponent is going to get his ideal push down on the map right now. The Musketeer, the bowler, and the mini P.E.K.K.A. all behind the giant, and then he even unloads that poison spell on the tombstones. But look at this, all the skeletons and just one Mega Minion are gonna totally end that entire push. It just goes to show you how much defensive flexibility and options this deck has. So now that we're in the last minute of the match going into overtime, the 2 things you want to note here is that King Dynamite does feel comfortable playing his Lava Hound on the other side of the map. Obviously, we talked about that earlier, and he's going to be playing a Tombstone on the other side of the map as well, just causing more and more pressure to be delivered onto the opponent's towers. So again, it's time to reload here. He has the princess ready. He knows he's going to have to defend. So in the left lane, he plays the mini P.E.K.K.A. against the bowler, but check out what he does in the right lane. So the opponent drops the poison probably a little bit too far to the right, and then he's going to essentially just use these tombstones to continue to aggro the giant further and further away from the tower that the opponent wants to get to. And that, my friends, is how you use the tombstone defensively against a mini P.E.K.K.A. giant combination. And that was just classic how to counter a beatdown strategy. Then he plays the mini P.E.K.K.A. on the opponent's side of the map, goes in for the kill shot there, and that's it, guys. That's all she wrote. So guys, wishing you all the success in the world if you do decide to give any of these 3 decks a shot. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the comments or tweet me. I'll be happy to answer. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and as always, take care, guys.